Future Hacker. Life. Path. Future.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Future Hacker. This is the second episode with Peter Cabral, and we have so much to talk. Peter, let's talk about political will. It just seems that we haven't found the best model to govern people in a way that we all feel represented, fairly and inclusively, in which personal interests are completely put aside from whoever is in power. And really talking in general, right? As much as there are good cases out there, I'm not sure the recipe for success is there yet, especially as we're all so different from each other, and those complexities sometimes don't find a common ground. So do you think that maybe the advancements in technology will eventually be the answer to government? There's this line of thought of which using, let's say, blockchain technology to vote, completely changing the way democracy plays out. Do you see that as a possible future?
I definitely see that technology as an incredibly important role and responsibility, increasing, improving our liberal governments around the world, our democracies around the world. I definitely see a great role and a great involvement. And when I talk about technologies, I'm not only talking about the obvious, but I'm talking about exponential technologies. You mentioned blockchain, talking about blockchain, artificial intelligence, and other tools that will generate value in terms of the future of government. But I think that there's work that needs to be done at a base level in order to fully take advantage of the possibilities associated with technological development, and particularly the application of exponential technologies. And what do I mean with that? I think that the civic engagement and one's responsibility in embracing its primary contract, which is our social contract. We may sign a lot of contracts throughout our lives, our mortgage, but there's one contract that is a birthright of ours, and will continue to be, God willingly, particularly in our modern, civilized, liberal, political concept of living, which is our social contract, right? So we're free. We have the right to own property. We pay taxes. We elect a government. We select a government through democratic principles of representation to defend our property, to uphold our values, so we can live free, so we can have our families, so we can generate wealth and seek for quality of living, right? The quality of living that we all aspire. Those are true, inalienable rights that we as humankind, as humans have. That for me is the true base groundwork that needs to be revisited. We need to rewrite our social contract. Perhaps our social contract not only needs to be rewritten, but we need to study it, see if there's any addendum that needs to be made, and we need to sign it. And by signing it is we need to fulfill our responsibility, our share. And fulfilling our share, I mean engaging. Seek true representative government. Know your representative government. For me, that's the most incredible thing, that as simple as it is, we don't rely and we don't depend on technology to do that. We already have that because the Republican concept of our liberal democracy started with that particular principle. But we forgot to do that. So I think that we're not doing enough of that just yet. I think that first we need to do that. We need to study our social contract, seek that understanding, execute that social contract, and then I think that through the utilization and application of exponential technologies, we can actually improve our government and seek the quality of services and well-being and transparency that we aspire for.
Do you think that there's this loss of belief in general, and maybe that's one of the reasons people are not getting as involved as we should?
Okay, so, let me answer that as a political scientist. That doubt stems from lack of transparency, right? So the lack of transparency is generated by, let's just call it, an establishment, right? So when you have agencies that develop a modus operandi that's further or that's continually detached from civil society, you get that sense of lack of transparency. And it's a true perceivable sense. It's a true perceivable notion. We don't see representation in the government. We don't see transparency. We become more dissociated. We become distant from that particular body of government. And we obviously start to discredit the government, lose trust. The building of trust is renewed once folks get engaged, right? But in order to get engaged, we have to get engaged with dialogue. We have to develop a common ground. We're very good at getting engaged in a polarized fashion, right? So you have factions that get engaged. Each one gets engaged and they're rather vocal about a particular point of view, right? But they do very little in bridging the gap. And when you don't bridge the gap and you don't build bridges and you don't build connections, it's tough to take that common sense information or agreeable information with regards to everyone to an organized government, to a sphere organized government, right? To a sphere of organized government. And that's what happens today. So you have the establishment, you have your public agencies that have a relationship of lack of trust with civil society. You have civil society that's split. And, we see this across the world. This is not a Northern Hemisphere phenomena. This is not a United States phenomena. This is not a Brazil phenomena. We see this throughout the world, right? So you have these factions that represent pockets of civil society with very little critical mass in the middle to bridge and to build consensus. Only after we build consensus, we may democratically push that consensus up to representative government, elect the right officials, and develop the right public policies. It's easier said than done, but this is my view of the challenges that we face today.
But it is something so great to be debating, right? Especially nowadays in which we're facing this crazy polarization. And as you said, not only in Brazil, right? This type of speech really should be heard by many. And something that also occurred to me, so let's say that we are able to evolve to a stage in which consensus is reached. So let's dream big. I was also thinking, we talk so much here when we're talking about, the use of exponential technologies, how it's something that it's not inclusive at all, but on the same time it's the beginning. And as most of anything that is new, it begins by not being inclusive, right? It's just with time and with knowledge, with volume, things getting more affordable, it starts getting to the overall population. But still, for people to make such use of technology, and it's for such an end, which is super important, which is, electing people, really education comes into play. I think education comes into play to reach the consensus for sure, but also to be making use of those technologies that might be available, right?
Yeah, well, good point. I mean, I'll take it a step further, if you allow me. Let's be a little more ambitious, right? So let's see the glass as half full, right? So you still have a great deal of potential to fill it up, right? And it's certainly not an empty glass. So you have possibilities. And where are the possibilities currently? Well, the possibilities today lie exactly on the following. Think about it. I mean, this is the best possible world that we're living in today. Yes, we have a pandemic. Yes, we have the problems that we have. But listen, I opened up saying that the poverty line, or let's just say the percentage of world's population that subsides under the poverty line is about 10%. I mean, that's the lowest percentage point ever, right? So we're not throwing more folks in poverty, right? The numbers are, obviously still being crunched. We don't know the aftermath post-COVID-19, but, let's see what those numbers will look like next year or in the next following months. But, this is the lowest percentage of world population that we have in terms of poverty. We never had as much peace as we have today throughout the world. We never had as many cures to diseases as we have today. We never had as little illiteracy throughout the world as we have today. I'm talking about worldwide, and so forth. And we also have access to information and data that we never had before. I mean, talking about Brazil, for example, you have young folks, let's just say preteen, right, with cell phones online with access to information that I didn't have, or CEOs running Fortune 500 companies didn't have 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, right? You have folks in sub-Saharan Africa with access to educational tools, whether online or physical, that we just didn't have access to before. We're taking resources to areas of the world that were unthinkable before, right? Just now with the pandemic here in Brazil, we have more than 30 million folks that just got online. They downloaded something for their very first time. They bought something online for the very first time. And this is not a Brazilian phenomenon. This is something that happens throughout the world. So, I mean, at Singularity, our founder calls it a rising billion. So you have 2-3 billion folks that around the world are becoming digital now, right? They're exposed to digital technologies. I wasn't born digital. I'm a digital migrant, right? I had my library card, and when I was late returning the book, I could only take out one book, right? So that analogic world had its limitations, was a world associated with scarcity. It was a local, regional, scarce world that's being replaced today by a digital, exponential, non-linear, globalized world. So that's the glass half full view. And this is a rather controversial view. I mean, Bill Gates was vocal about it. I invite you to think about it in those terms, because when you look at this, you start seeing opportunity and you start to understand that we're living at the cusp of an incredible moment of change with great potential, not only at an individual level, but particularly at a collective, social, civilizational level. And that's my view. So, yes, we do lack access to certain tools. Certain tools are still, let's just say, they're difficult, they're expensive, perhaps not accessible to everyone. Yes, there are think tanks in certain inexpensive schools that not everyone has access to. But at the end of the day, we have to see that it's much easier today than it was a mere 20, 30, 40 years ago.
I think what you said is so right. Of course, we are evolving in so many aspects, right? When you compare it to many years ago. And we are at a place that, we have to make the decision about how are we moving forward. So I'm going to make a change here, because I usually ask this question at the end of the show. But now as we're discussing about it, I must ask it now, right? It makes so sense with the context that we're talking now. We are evolving. For me, it's unquestionable. But still, the way we are going to make a decision to move forward, right? We reach this place that we're either saying, okay, as you mentioned, let's reset, let's try to make it better, let's try to make it sustainable, let's change the way we do business now, and let's think about it in a collective way. But at the same time, as the technologies are advancing for good, we have all those crazy chemical and bio weapons, and who knows the way it can go, depending on a couple of people that are few in the world, but that's very powerful and have access to very dangerous things. So given this scenario, and I think I would guess the answer, but I'd love to hear from you. Are you an optimistic, and you think that, we are choosing the right path and that we are going to be able to make the choice of living in an inclusive and sustainable society? Or do you think that, what's the threat of going towards a darker place? What's your analysis?
Peter Cabral is an eternal Pollyanna, right? So I always like to see the positive side of things. I analyze things always, not only the scientist part of me, but I always like to see things from the via positiva, the positive way of looking at things. So I'll tell you something. Men, and we see that throughout history, we don't need much help to get to a dark place, right? I mean, historically, we've seen, we've done a great job at that, right? Unfortunately, we have this precondition of doing the good and experience it, but we also have the very same motivations to do the bad and experience it and live it and thrive through it. And we've done that individually and collectively. So we'll continue to do that. That's natively human. That's endemic to our human organic fabric. We will always have a precondition, a drive, as unhealthy as it is, to do something bad. What we need to do is we need to create general collective awareness, and that starts with the individual, and that's his role within society, to uphold certain values that are inviolable, that are universal, that are consensual, and that seek for well-being, seek for positive change, seek for positive impact, seek for harmony and synchronicity at a worldwide level. And when I talk about that, I'm talking about everything. I'm talking about social development. I'm talking about technological development, environmental development and care. I'm talking about economic development. I'm talking about political engagement and political development. With that being said, it is our responsibility to learn with our errors. I mean, we do that very well, I posit, at a personal level, right? I mean, usually we understand. I mean, we do something, trial and error. We do something right. Excellent. There's a reward, so we'll keep doing that. We do something bad. We try something else, and eventually we'll get it right. So if we do that at a personal level, I also like to think that we'll continue and we'll thrive to do that at a collective level. We have to learn with our errors. And I understand that we have motivations to do that. And I think that as the world becomes more globalized, as the world becomes smaller, and the engagement is greater, I think that you'll have more people concerned and driven to do the good than you'll have factions of society, groups that may not necessarily represent a particular society or a particular country. You'll have less and lesser of those folks performing the bad. The world is incredibly synchronous, and technology has done that today. We live in a globalized exponential world. Butterfly effect, right? Something happens over here, as small as it may be, will have a tremendous impact in the other side of the world, in the other side of the country, in the other side of the continent. And that's the world that we live in today. So the general awareness is one where we are motivated to, as a collective body, to perform good. Although we have a precondition, perhaps individualistic, and perhaps we inherited that from the savannas 6 million years ago, to tragedy of the commons, right? This is the last orange tree in the world. I have 5 oranges. I could very well be satiated with half an orange, but I will eat all 5 because the other guy, if there was another guy here, he would do the same thing, right? We have a precondition to do that. We'll say, hold on a second. Why would I do that? Would the other guy do that? No. So let me do the same. Talking about technology and talking about big tech, big players that contribute, permanently in terms of a generation of wealth worldwide. And going back to my previous answer, those companies have a tremendous responsibility in becoming more engaging with society, becoming more of a stakeholder company, seeking to do right by their local communities, seeking to create projects that generate positive net gains, positive impact in their local communities, in their countries. And that's a responsibility that's starting to gain a great deal of importance at a root level, particularly when you see big funds like BlackRock, $7 trillion worth of portfolio, something like that, with its CEO sending letters, annual letters saying, listen, year after year he's been saying that, Larry Fink, this is it. We're not investing. We're actually divesting in companies that aren't strong on ESG values. So if you don't have a program that takes care of the environment, if you don't have social programs that take care of your local communities, your employee, if you don't take care of your stakeholders, if you don't have governance rules that will generate a great deal of transparency so you don't speculate markets and you don't generate financial wealth for your own personal shareholder interest, I'm not interested in that type of business. So this is gaining a serious momentum worldwide. So what you'll see is that as we become closer together as a civilized society and as a civilization, when you look at organized governments across the world, and as dependent on technology as we are, we still have 1, 2, or 3, or 4, or 5 CEOs that are calling the shots. And we see that with big tech, as you mentioned in your question. And the thing is, as these companies become public, right, and they're invested in your markets around the world, the investors, and this is you, myself, everyone, funds, the message ought to be very clear. We're not tolerating that these companies did not give back. We will not tolerate that. We also will not tolerate that these companies will make money with our data without us even knowing about it. And we're not going to tolerate that our privacy is invaded for their own personal financial gain. Now, you have certain blocks around the world, for example, the European bloc, the United States as well, less. Here in Brazil, LGPD, right? So the internet, civil and data privacy laws were finally sanctioned last year. So, if you look at a worldwide level, that was a big accomplishment. So there are organized governments that are already saying, listen, there are certain rules here. Listen, it got to the extent where France, for example, today has rather severe laws against big tech, Facebook, for example, Google, whereas they say, listen, you're part of a multinational company, and we know that you generate financial wealth in this country, but due to your tax engineering, you're not paying taxes in this country. You're paying taxes in other countries that have a lesser tax to be levied upon. So you're saving millions of dollars or millions of euro. But you're operating in this country, and you should abide to the rules that other companies operate and the taxes that other companies have to respect. So why is it that some of these companies think that they develop these tax engineering strategies to avoid paying taxes in the countries that they operate on? Why is it that these companies generate financial wealth with their users' data without them even knowing about it? Could this be a new form of universal basic income? This is another thesis that I've developed that I've been defending it, right? So, if you talk about a universal basic income, should that be a responsibility of the government? Should that be an acquired birthright? Or should it be something that these companies should start to do, and we should dress it up as a universal basic income? Let me give an example. You want to make money on my account? So you've generated X amount of wealth on my account with regards to profiling, or what is it that I've opted, that I've decided or accepted that you could do? I need to see a little. I need to see a percentage of that net gain. So for every dollar that you make, I make 1, 2, 3, 4, 50 cents on the dollar, whatever it is. So for example, last year, people speculate that Facebook made about 50 somewhat dollars on top of each account. They have millions of accounts, so you do the math. So let's just say that it did $50 on your account. Perhaps you could have gotten a cash back of $5, $10, I don't know, right? So that could be the concept, or that could be dressed up, formulated as a universal basic income type of concept. So technology is great. Technology brings a great deal of opportunity. However, we need to raise the awareness with regards to ESG, social responsibility, corporate responsibility. And when you substitute or when you integrate those values across the world and you deploy them across the world in your small, mid, large cap companies, then you'll have sustainable financial development. And then you'll have a world of opportunity. And I'm not talking about equity. I'm talking about opportunity. I'm not talking about having the same outcome for everyone. I still believe in a meritocratic environment, but I just think that you will have opportunities and you will not have big companies predating on the small folks. You'll have a market economy that's driven by the market and not by speculation driven mostly by shareholders and their own private bonus interests. Did that answer the question?
Oh, more than that. Thank you so much. Really. So, Peter, this is the end of the second episode. But stay tuned, everybody, as we're going to space on the third and last episode with Peter Cabral. Stay tuned, everybody.
Future Hacker. Life. Path. Future.